Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking to you about an autobiography called Ghost Boy, written by Martin Pistorius. So basically, Martin wrote this book to share his story about what it's like to live with locked-in syndrome, as well as spread awareness to the abuse that goes on unnoticed in care homes. Ghost Boy is a touching story about a boy named Martin who manages to escape the confines of his own body after a terrible childhood illness leaves him unable to move or communicate. Throughout his journey, he faces multiple misdiagnoses, violent caretakers, and abuse at care homes, all while trying to convince the people around him that his mind is alive. In the end, he manages to break free into the world through love, faith, and support from the people who care about him most, as well as complete strangers. So first let me start off with some background and history. So basically, Martin was born in the year 1975 in South Africa and has an older sister named Kim and a younger brother named David. He was a happy, healthy boy who loved electronics and had a small yellow dog named Pookie. However, when he was 12 years old, he came home from school one day complaining of a sore throat and never went back. He was later diagnosed with locked-in syndrome and has been unable to move or communicate well ever since. After reading this book, I have concluded that Martin is observant, diligent, and forgiving. First of all, since Martin has been ignored for most of his life due to his condition, he spends most of his time observing others and has mastered this skill quite well. He understands what emotions people are feeling and what emotions they might be covering up. For example, Martin exclaims, "Even after such a short time, I know Joan's face well enough to know if she is tired or happy, annoyed or exasperated. I spend hour after hour studying her, and as we talk, I've realized that her face is not a mask like some people's. Instead, every emotion can be found and written on it if I look hard enough." Furthermore, throughout Martin's life, there are multiple instances that demonstrate how hardworking and diligent he is. He understands his goals and will work all day and night just to achieve them. Martin remarks that work and study are what will help me get a better job, higher income, and maybe even a house of my own one day. These are the things that I want, and I must do my best to achieve them. Due to his hard work, he has moved all the way up from being able to volunteer at a healthcare center once a week to getting a paid position at a scientific research institution for web design, which is absolutely incredible. Last but not least, this book greatly demonstrates Martin's forgiving nature. He quotes, "Mom looked up at me. Her eyes were filled with tears. 'You must die,' she said slowly as she looked at me. 'You have to die.'" Even though it must have been completely heartbreaking and discouraging to hear those words from his own mother, he found a way to look at things from her point of view and understood her desperation. Little by little, Martin learned why it was so hard for his mother to live with such a cruel parody of the once healthy child she loved so much. Then, instead of being sad himself, he wondered if his mother was okay, and this demonstrates his immense compassion towards others as well. He states, "I long ago learned to forgive my mother for her mistakes. I wonder if she's forgiven herself." Okay, so now for aspirations and goals. So these change significantly for Martin throughout the novel. At the beginning, his only wish is to be able to communicate more and put himself out into the world. Once he succeeds with that, he then wants to find a job, be more independent, and maybe even experience romantic love. Then, once he meets his wife, Joan, he then wants to buy a house and move in with her. All in all, he aspires to be more optimistic and have a more positive outlook on life like Joan. He also wants to let go of the harsh memories of his past and only focus on the future moving forward. All in all, I think we can say that Martin has made some significant strides in his life. So, in my opinion, the most defining conflict in this book is person versus self because it was most challenging and therefore greatly influenced Martin's development in the end. So, due to Martin's illness, he has always felt very lonely and misunderstood because he's not able to communicate like the rest of us. Even after he found out about the world of AAC, which is augmentative and alternative communication, he still has trouble finding people to listen to him and to have smooth conversations with. However, this conflict is resolved when Martin finds the love of his life, Joan, who loves him unconditionally and makes him feel complete. She makes him feel like nothing else in the world matters and makes him feel really, really good about himself. Martin has, quote, "never known it could be like this with another person, so easy and so simple, or that talking to a woman could feel as natural as it does with Joan." So the next conflict I will be discussing is person versus person, which involves Martin and Martin's mother. So basically, Martin wants to go to Canada with Joan for a speech. However, his mother is definitely not comfortable with this because she's always accompanied and assisted him wherever he's gone. Despite this, Martin feels ready to go alone and is greatly hurt by his mother's response because he wants to become more independent. This conflict is later resolved, however, when Martin's mother finally gives in and allows him to go. She realizes he is capable after his trip to the UK 3 months earlier to visit her, and this is significant as it symbolizes her willingness and acceptance to move forward. The last conflict I will be talking about is person versus society. So when Martin first became ill, people were very ignorant towards his condition and did not really understand it. This led people to overlook him or pretend like he wasn't there to unleash their ugliest desires. This included the abuse that went on in the care homes. This contributed to Martin feeling absolutely worthless and powerless to change what was happening to him. On top of this, Martin's opportunities were greatly limited to get somewhere in life, as almost nobody had any faith in his abilities whatsoever. Although there is no complete resolution to this conflict, Martin proved himself through his work ethic and gained recognition and respect from people because of his various jobs and speeches at universities about his life. So now for lessons and themes. So the first theme I have is for human nature, which touches upon our great desire for attention as human beings. My thematic statement is, people tend to have a great desire for attention, which leaves them feeling neglected and alone if they are not given enough of it. This is the case for Martin at the beginning because nobody else knows that his mind is alive, and therefore he has absolutely no human interaction. His days are boring and he feels really alone and confused about what happened to him. Secondly, for relationships, my theme is love. My thematic statement is, finding love in another person can lead you to look past the flaws in your life and bring out the best version of yourself. This statement relates to Martin when he met Joan because it really reversed his perspectives about life and made him more hopeful for the future and what's to come. Basically, in other words, Joan saved his life. Lastly, this book gives insight into the ignorance that exists in our world. My thematic statement is, ignorance derived from a lack of knowledge generally leads people to make automatic assumptions that can limit a person's potential. This is what happened in Martin's situation at the beginning because people automatically assumed that he wasn't smart or aware. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book a lot, and it's actually been one of the few books that's interested me for its excellent tone, writing style, and structure. First and foremost, Martin writes this book with a very honest yet humorous tone, which is really intriguing to me because he provides moments of humor while also being straightforward about his emotions and experiences. It made me really connect with his story and personality a lot more. For instance, Martin is humorous when he exclaims that, "Women seem to think they go on diets in order to feel happier, but I know from experience that this is not true. In fact, I can safely say that the less women eat, the grumpier they get." Whereas, he displays a more honest tone when he admits, "I'm scared of doing the wrong thing, offending someone, or not doing a job well enough. I'm fearful of stepping on someone's toes, not being up to what is asked of me, or expressing an opinion that will surely be ridiculed." Now for writing style. So I really enjoyed how this book was written. It was very easy to understand, but informative at the same time. Also, throughout the book, Martin makes sure to include a bunch of literary devices which help the reader better connect to his emotions and how he actually felt. And closer to the beginning of the book, he dedicated a whole chapter to imagery about a sea creature who's coming up to the surface of the water to try to explain to people what it was like when his mind was coming back to life. Obviously, since no one here has locked-in syndrome, we probably can't relate to Martin's experiences that well, so he uses this device to make it easier for people like us to understand what he was going through, as well as to make the book more interesting. Now for structure. So in this book, Martin does a very good job at using his syntax to further convey his emotions with the use of shorter sentences. For example, Martin exclaims, "My hand freezes above the keyboard. What almost surprises me most is that I'm not afraid or uncertain. I feel overwhelmed, but I'm ecstatic, not fearful. She wants to meet me. I don't need to ask myself if I want to go. I want to meet Joan more than I've ever wanted anything in my life." Secondly, Martin included many flashbacks and foreshadowing, which made it slightly hard to follow along in my opinion. However, he did include pictures, which I appreciated. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book, and I learned a lot about locked-in syndrome for the first time. I found Martin's journey to be really inspiring and uplifting, and therefore I recommend this book to every single one of you. Thank you!